good morning. So today what we're going to be doing is all of those boxes go on this here F250. I believe we are going to be installing a 3-inch lift. Let's see what kind of fun this is going to be, as it will be another driveway job. So no lift or anything used for this one. As normal, we still have something occupying the lift, which that's a whole nother story. But let's get to it. So the first thing we always do, or you want to make sure you do, check your inventory. Make sure everything that's supposed to be here to do your job is here. And we've gone through. Those are extra. I'm guessing he's probably going to have different wheels. This is a dual steering stabilizer setup, which is in addition to the lift. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, everything, at least for this lift, is here. Well, let's get started. Okay, so we've got both front shocks off, and then took the track bar loose, which sat in this bracket here, and the big bolt that goes through here, well, that's that big one right there. It's a 30 millimeter. It's pretty tight. Make sure you have a big wrench. And this bracket here for the track bar, that sits up right there, and it's got these three that have bracket on the back side that hold them in. These three nuts that go through from the front, they are 21s, and then it has 2 bolts that go up here, and here that hold it. Those are 18 millimeters, and those nuts that are on the inside, they're capture nuts. It's got these here and here that keep the nut from going anywhere and keep it so you don't have to hold it from the backside. Now we're going to install the new track bar bracket. I'm assuming it for one allows for adjustment, because that's elongated compared to this one is just stationary. Doesn't look like it's a whole bunch more of a drop down, but more or less allows the adjustability of the track arm, which would allow it to slide more for the lift. So we're gonna get that bracket put up there and move on to the next step. All right, new track bar bracket installed. Old one removed. Next, we got to lower the axle, pull the springs out. In order to do that, we're going to take the sway bar link bolt out on the bottom, and we're going to take this brake line bracket off so it can have some more travel. Yeah, we're going to do that on both sides. Then we're going to pull these springs out and eventually work to dropping the arms off. Alright, got the axle lowered down, and whether or not you need it, I did run a strap from the axle up to this front cross member, because I don't know, I have a suspicion when I take the arm loose on both sides to put the drop brackets on, that this whole axle would, even though there's a drive shaft, would still try to move backwards some. And, well, I figured if I could have some extra support to keep it closer to where it should be, and when I drop those and put them back up, I'll have less hard of a time trying to wrestle them little boogers back where they need to be. So springs are out, axle's lowered. Next step is going to be dropping the arms on both sides, putting the drop brackets right there so those will be lower. And yeah, it's time to go grab a snack, grab a little bit of early lunch, and then we'll catch back up here in a minute. Alright, so we've got the radius arm off on both sides, and that's the bolt that goes in there. Essentially it sits just like so. Your bolt head is a 15/16, and then the actual nut on that side is a 1 1/16. And yes, it's pretty tight. Anyhow, take that out. Now we're working on putting these drop brackets in, which I've got that one, if you can see over there, installed. And it will utilize both of these holes with new hardware to go through. And not listed in the instructions, but it does fit all the way through the original hole with no issue. But this other hole that's not used from the factory, the threaded part goes in, but the shank of the bolt does not. They do not disclose that in the instructions about having to make this hole bigger for the shank of the bolt. Luckily, you only have to do that on this side because the threads do fit through over here, and that's fine. There's also crush sleeves that are going to go inside the new bracket that the bolts pass through, which are going to keep it rigid from smashing in, hence the name crush sleeve. There's also in the instructions, they do talk about having to trim 3/4 of an inch, which I'll show you that when I get there, off the radius arm to allow for, I guess, clearance in here when it does swing to not hit these crush sleeves. So what I used here was just a drill bit to make this just a tad bit bigger on the other side. Anyhow, I haven't done this side yet to allow for that bolt to pass through. We'll work on doing that now, and then I'll show you the trimming that apparently has to be done on the radius arm. Okay, so I am in questioning, I should say, these instructions, because if you look at it, it says that I need to, this being the top of the radius arm, cut 3/4 of an inch off to clearance so it does not hit those crush sleeves inside the new radius arm bracket. Back to the instructions. That sure looks like a piece sticking up, correct? Looks like that to me. These radius arms do not have parts sticking up. Just like if you look in the next step where it's talking about putting a radius bracket up, you see this radius arm has a raised tab. That, yes, if indeed this had a raised tab, I would imagine it may make contact in there where clearancing would be necessary. So I don't think you need to cut anything on this particular model, so these instructions may not be 100% for every vehicle. We're going to put that up there and roll with it to see if it does indeed hit or not hit, which I'm all about not having to cut anything, although we did have to clearance a little bit for these upper bolts. Alright, well, let's see what happens. Alright, so having someone here to help you, like your kid, to pick up on the axle while you shove the bolt in, or vice versa, super beneficial, because I'm not sure that I could have done that by myself. I mean, you could probably get creative with lots of things to do that, but it is easier to get it done with another person helping. So, if you had kids, here's reason 9,487 for having them, to help you when you work on your truck, or for this matter, somebody else's. Carry on. Would you look at these fancy ass looking shocks? Well, hopefully they work as good as they look. They do look pretty good. New spring in there. New drop bracket for the radius arm. New track bar bracket, which we still don't have the track bar in yet. It's still sitting right there. But we are getting closer to being done. But yeah, at least with the front. Still have to do the back, which should be fairly simple. Looks like it's just a block for the back, but wanted to show those nice looking shocks there. The shock in it yet, just the spring. Everything's getting bolted up, so keep on moving. Okay, so we've got the front and spring, the shock, and the radius arm bracket. It's all mounted where it's supposed to be. You gotta make sure that you put the spacer plate here in the track bar bracket, and the hole goes more to this side than that side. There's one on both sides. You can kind of see that plate in there now. That locks up into where it's supposed to be, and there's one on the back side too. So still got to do the back, but she's a bit taller, and of course we still got to put the dual steering stabilizer kit on that they got. So alright, let's move on to the back now. This one should be a little bit easier to do. Let's see what all we're getting into on this one. Alright, so on the back, I'm having to do the exact same thing I did the last time I installed one of these rough country lifts on the back of a 3/4 ton and bigger truck. So this is where your factory U-bolts would go, which is factory U-bolt. Originally, this is the new lift block in here. Originally, these trucks have a small lift block down there, and then they have their normal leaf pack. Then there's a spacer, a load leaf, and then your top bracket for where your U-bolt goes over and down to the saddle that goes underneath the axle and the U-bolts go to. Well, unfortunately, with all of the lift block and this load leaf setup, these new U-bolts are still not long enough to go all the way down through the saddle and be able to be bolted in. So what we do is, or what I did last time, same thing I'm doing this time. Go over here. Pretty much pull out the spacer plate and the load leaf, which then brings this a lot further down to where now technically the lift will go on no problem, but for whatever reason, at least with these kits, and tell me if I'm wrong, they do not allow for you to run your load leaf, which just means if this gets a heavy load in the back of it, I doubt, but we'll see, it'll squat a little bit more. Now I imagine we could put these back on if necessary. Just have to get considerably longer U-bolts, which I don't know why these kits don't come with them. I don't know if there's an actual specific kit that does from Rough Country or not, but there you have it. So in process, I've got vice grips holding the centering pin down there because it's just round. Looby dooby on the bolt up here, about to bust that loose. Of course, I use C-clamps on the leaf spring pack to keep it from coming apart. Wouldn't go anywhere, but it does help keep everything centered. I'm gonna bust this loose, do what I did on the other side, and then go back together. Again, tell me if I'm missing something, but had to do the exact same thing on the 3/4 ton Dodge with a Rough Country lift as well. So hang tight. Okay, so got the rear done, got the front done. Only thing left is to install the dual stabilizer for the front. But so far, this is what we got. Front and the back, which we'll pull it out when we're completely done and get the full view of it. Shocks in the back, shocks and blocks. Typical lift kit or drop kit, shocks and blocks. Yep, so definitely takes quite a bit longer when you have lots of distractions, but it's getting there. So let's get on this stabilizer and see what all kind of fun it's going to be doing that. Alright, no lift can be complete until you put your stickers on your shocks and stabilizers if they didn't come already. So let's put the last one on here on these stabilizers, which I'll show you. I did not show you anything of me putting it on, but I'll let you see it. Okay. Dual steering stabilizer. Pretty much comes with this little bracket here. Got to make sure the stabilizer hole is towards the inside. Get these two little U-bolts that hold that there. There's a bracket that goes to the differential, utilizing two of the holes for the cover. Comes with new bolts for that. There's two extra holes there for different year models. It also has a big U-bolt that goes around the axle there. Bolts to that bracket. And then the stabilizer is essentially attached to the middle there on both sides. Fancy little cover. And then it goes across to the other side, same thing. with the little U-bolts that hold it there. Essentially, in the instructions or pictures I saw, it was nestled right up against the flat spot there on the tie rod. And yeah, so aside from test driving it, this one is done. And of course, I'll give you guys a daytime shot of it tomorrow, so you can see it in all its mighty gloriness. Alright, good morning. It's the next morning, and since last night was, well, dark, couldn't see it, figured I'd show you guys what the finished product looked like in the daylight. There it is. 3 inches taller. Looks pretty good. He said that he will be getting new wheels and tires come this Tuesday, so not sure what they chose, but the suspension part's done, and of course they'll also get the alignment after they get the wheels and tires, because the steering wheel's off just a bit. But all right, another one finished, courtesy of Guys Automotive. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.